We can also use SOHCAHTOA and trigonometry to find the angle if we know two of the sides. So again, just to remind you, SOHCAHTOA helps us remember the rules. So SOH means sine is opposite over hypotenuse, CAH means cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and TOA is tan is opposite over adjacent. And you need to make sure you label your triangle properly as well. So let's do an example. First of all, label the triangle. The angle is over here, and that's what we're actually trying to find, which is why it's labelled theta. We have this side here, which is the opposite, this side, which is the adjacent, and that side, the hypotenuse. So you can see the two that I'm interested in are adjacent and opposite. So adjacent and opposite means I'm going to be using tan. So tan theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. So we just substitute in again. So tan theta is equal to O over A, which is 3 over 4. And that's equal to 0.75. Now here's a problem here, because the thing we don't know is theta, but it's got this tan that's doing something to it. It's calculating the ratio. We have to get rid of that, and the way to do that is to the opposite of tan. Now, as squares and square roots are opposite, plus and minus is opposite, there is a special inverse function called inverse tan. And on your calculator, that's usually obtained by pressing second tan. So I'm going to do second tan or inverse tan to both sides. So inverse tan of tan theta is equal to inverse tan of 0.75. So what I've done is I've actually done the same thing to both sides. I've done inverse tan of both sides. On the left hand side, inverse tan and tan are opposite, so they cancel each other out. So I end up with theta equals inverse tan of 0.75. So on your calculator, you're just going to go inverse tan of 0.75 and you'll get the answer. And make sure your calculator is set to degrees, otherwise you might get an answer in something called radians, which we don't want to talk about just yet. So calculating inverse tan of 0.75 gives me 36.9 degrees. So this angle up here, we didn't know before, we now know is 36.9. Here is another example. So first of all, label a triangle. The angle is down here, so this is the adjacent, that's the hypotenuse, and that's the opposite. So the two we have is O and H, so I'm going to be using sine this time, SOH. So writing down the equation, sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Substitute values in, sine theta equals, the opposite is 4, the hypotenuse is 5, that calculates to 0.8. So sine theta is 0.8. Need to do inverse sine of both sides. So inverse sine of sine theta equals inverse sine of 0.8. On the left hand side, the sine and the inverse sine cancel out. So what's left is theta equals inverse sine of 0.8, and that's worth 53.1 degrees.